Hello and good afternoon all. My name is Charlie Liu, and I'm a solutions consultant from DocuSign. So I work very closely with my sales team, and we support our customers both here in Singapore as well as across the greater China markets. So today I'm really excited to be here to have this opportunity to share with you on the topic, digitalizing agreements with data, design, and technology. Now, if I may ask, when you hear the term agreements, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Anyone? Just give a shout out. Agreements? Legal? Anyone else? Will give a try? Just gentleman over here? Tedious? Sorry? Paper-based. All right. So, and a lot of times it also depends on the industry we are in, right? So if you are in the banking and financial industry, we hear a lot about loan agreements. If we are selling, say, a car, then we have sales agreement as well. But in general, I think a lot of us will have this concept of, a few sheets of papers with a lot of legal language on it, and our job is really to make sure that we review it, we read through, understand what it is, and if all parties are okay, we sign, we countersign, job done. Right? It sounds as simple as that is. But in reality, like in a lot of organizations, in a lot of enterprises, it is not so simple because there's a lot of manual process, all right, that's behind the scene, something that we don't actually perhaps see even day to day. So I hope through today's topic, right, I can kind of like take all of us through this topic through the lens of transformation, all right, to help us better understand some of the details that's happening behind the scene. But most importantly, is also hoping to let all of us be able to reimagine and redefine the way we look at agreements. And of course, when we talk about digitalization, we understand, generally it's never just about technology or technology alone. All right, it is also going to dovetail very much back into the broader umbrella of digital transformation, right, where we have to align people, process, and technology across the business, right, and have a very good perspective on how to manage that from a mindset shift of getting buy-ins from our stakeholders, as well as also to manage the change management along the way. So fundamentally, it's going to fundamentally change the way that we operate, the way we go to market, and most importantly also the way we go about serving our customers and giving value to them and bringing the value back to the business as well. And so I think some of the successful brands who have actually already embarked on this journey, some of the common traits that you will find is, they break new frontiers. Basically, there are new digital innovations that happen. And then they also created new business model, which means that they open up new markets and created a new demand. But also, most importantly, you would feel that overall, there's also an improve in the overall customer experience, all right, which also set a new benchmark for some of the digital-led or digital-first business to actually anchor what success and what good looks like. And so arguably, all these will have a long-lasting and a profound impact on the way we live, the way we work, the way we communicate and commute. And as a result, I feel that by that, we should all also agree that transformation on its own is never a one-day affair, all right? It's going to be a long-lasting period, a journey that all of us will have to go through. And if we were to look at the journey, all right, of transformation that has happened over the last 20 to 30 years, I think if we look at it, it's centered generally around the system of records as well as the system of engagement. Now, when we talk about a system of records, companies in the past, all right, they invested heavily, all right, in technologies like ERP, CRM, for example, and all this is in an attempt, right, to connect the back office and the front office, right, to break down data silos, to automate their business processes, and along the way, they generate reports, give them insights to help them decide what to optimize, where to optimize in terms of the supply chains, in terms of their inventory management. And also along the way, they rigorously streamline their finance and accounting processes, all in the good spirit of driving greater efficiency across the organization. And then they very quickly also pivoted into getting a single view of the customer, right, or the golden customer record, where it is really about amalgamating the different data points, all the necessary information they have about the customer to help them decide, the sales process, who and when to start engaging the customers. And that brings us back to the system of engagement, because the rise of MarTech, marketing technology, and AdTech, all right, kind of like elevated the system of engagement, because right now companies have started to teach the traditional batch and blast database marketing, right? They are more focused around customer lifecycle management, driving more targeted content, more relevant and more personalized communication to their end users, to their customers. And it's not just based on the customer's profile, right? It's also based on the digital body language, the digital interactions they have with your digital properties. And at the end of the day, it's also perhaps about, what kind of white papers they may have downloaded or what sort of events they have attended, and combining all these to form that single customer's view. And so with that, right, I think the next thing I would like to kind of like share with you, of course, in 2020, which is not too far away, right, the world woke up to find COVID right in front of our doorsteps, right? And I think it is a time where we also recall that, a lot of business were impacted, the schools were closed. And at that point in time, I think it is interesting to note that we actually moved from what we call digital disruption into massive disruption, because businesses, schools, and every level, they're all impacted. And at that point in time, I keep thinking to myself, do we not have the ERPs, the CRMs of the world to keep the business running? Do we not have the marketing automation solution that's still driving the business, still driving the interactions? The fact is, yes, we do, right? But yet businesses are still impacted. And even for some of the world's largest corporations, they are not spared. Right? Some of these businesses even, in fact, come to a complete standstill. The question that I have for myself is then, why is that so? Now, if we look behind the scene, a lot of times in the organization, the processes, right, it relies a lot on agreements. Relies on agreements to get things moving. If I need to onboard a staff or a team of employees to open up new markets, or if I now start to need to so-called onboard my suppliers or offboard certain partners, there is a process, there is agreements that needs to happen. And back then, all these came to a standstill because agreements just could not be prepared, executed, right, and managed on time. So as a result, if I were to look at it this way, right, I feel that, this pandemic, or what I would call the adversity of our lifetime, shouldn't just be looked upon as just a catalyst that exacerbated digital transformation. I personally feel that it should be a sobering reminder to everyone, right, including our business leaders, our IT leaders, that it is no longer just adequate to think about having a robust, highly scalable or highly available information system to power the business. In fact, we should start to look into, right, the whole concept of how do we make the business more sustainable, right, more adaptable in the larger scheme of things. Because we should start to bake these elements, all right, plan and design and bake these elements into the ecosystem and prepare ourselves for the bigger, wider challenges ahead. And so if digital transformation were to be a journey, right, I personally would feel that, transforming our system of agreement should be our next destination. Because regardless of the challenging times or whatsoever that may happen in the near future, I feel that connecting the business, getting the deals done, getting the agreements signed, right, should still be able to continue even in the toughest hours of the human history. And so before we jump into the system of agreement, I feel it's always good to take a look at the agreement journey. All right, so essentially the agreement journey will comprise of a few stages, right? From the point where we start to generate the agreement, generate the contracts, right, to reviewing the T's and C's, to getting the contract signed, executed, and managed. There's this whole long drawn process. And a lot of the customers whom I have the privilege to work with, right, they feedback a lot of challenges actually doesn't happen at the signing stage. A lot of those challenges happen in the preparation stage, right, where there are a lot of manual processes, a lot of copy and paste. And one of the customers was sharing with me that, well, we do contracts in a very simple way. We grab a past contract, we do a save as, right, and we control find and control replace company ABC with XYZ, and then we pick a few clauses from the past contract and start to plunge everything in, ta-da, we have a contract. All right, and the funny thing was sometimes they even forget to change the authorized signatory within the papers. Now, all these things should not be unfamiliar, right? We have been through that, and to a certain degree, I think even today, some of the documents could be labeled as underscore V1, underscore final, or underscore final, right? We are all very, very familiar, very cognizant of that. So in that sense, right, the struggle at this phase is generally about versioning. How do we maintain control over the version? How do we know whether the copy that I have is the latest compared to the other copy, which is maybe in the PA's email? So there's a lot to that. And also from the signing perspective, right, once the contract gets into the signing phase, if there are multiple signers, how do we know which person is about to sign next? Until we know that the first person to sign has completed signing, it is returned to us, and then we start to send it out to the second person. Now, all these processes are actually very time-consuming, and not to mention, it also lacks visibility to some degree. And I will just also talk about the fact that studies have shown that a fragmented journey, something that we saw earlier, all right, have severe ramification to the business at many different levels. All right, so if you look at it, it always comes out in one of these 4 forms over here, where there's either an inefficient preparation process, which means there's a lot of manual entry, a lot of data entries errors, and then people has to continuously rework the contract, and as a result, it impacts the productivity. And if the contract that is incorrect goes out to the customer, what that means is the customers may have to get that sent back, get it corrected, and come back again to sign. So that again hits customer experience, which also explains sometimes why the CSAT score may not be entirely that fantastic as a result of such processes going on. And of course, when we look at poor execution, all right, when you have an obligations that you need to manage from within your agreements and you're not doing so, it presents an opportunity for revenue leakage. And this isn't going to be too pleasant, especially when you have a business to run, right? Last but not least, also the challenge around management of the contracts. So some of the contracts, they have auto-renewals. Now, don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with having auto-renewals in terms of the agreements, but when the auto-renewals goes untracked, unmonitored, unchecked, we are also missing the opportunity to perhaps negotiate for a better deal in the next cycle. And so, in general, the different stages across the agreement journey that we saw earlier can be categorically broken down and grouped into these 4 pillars: prepare, sign, act, and manage, otherwise also known as the system of agreement. And the fragmented journey that we saw earlier, along with the statistics, right, only goes to confirm one thing, right? Companies are struggling, but they're struggling not because they don't have a system of agreement. Rather, there are still gaps, right? Still potholes within the system of agreement that has to be addressed, that has to be fixed. So today, many organizations are seeing these gaps, and what I want to show you in the next couple of slides are really top-line initiatives, top-line thoughts that are really started by some of the companies who are in the transformation journey. The first thing, customers or companies are starting to move away from paper-based agreements into electronic formats, right? That's also help them to reduce costs, not just on the usage of paper, but think about it in terms of the printing, the ink supplies, the postages, the couriers, and putting agreements on the electronic format also means that it's easier to facilitate collaboration. And of course, there's a lot of activities going on right now to have document generation, such that the information that we store within our system of record can be very quickly, very easily utilized, ingested into the templates to help us generate the contracts and agreements. And when it comes to the signing pillar, customers are also now starting to adopt digital and electronic signatures in place of wet signatures. And one clear-cut benefit to that, right, is if you were to be served a manual copy of the agreement and if you do a wet signature, at any one point in time, only one person can sign it. But if we are now saying that there are multiple signers, all right, who needs to sign the documents, and we can actually do that in an electronic format, at one go, everybody can log in and again starts to get the agreement signed. So it really saves a lot of time. And of course, that also dovetails into the fact that we are multi-channel these days, right? In the email and the SMS, or even in-app, we should be able to serve that signing experience throughout these different channels. And once the agreements get endorsed, get signed, happy days, right? We now need to start to execute on that agreements. Now, traditionally, what I see a lot of companies do is they have the hard copy of the agreements back, then they have to make 10 copies each, and then start to stamp the certified true copy across each of these copies. But ultimately, if you look at it, right, why not just have, a digital copy, but you can generate 10 unique links, share these 10 unique links with the 10 individuals or recipients who are supposed to receive the contract. But all these 10 unique links will point back to just the one same digital copy. All right, that's going to save a lot of effort. So you wouldn't have to worry whether it's that copy in the email or is that attachment inside the email or the copy inside the SharePoint will be the correct version or not. Now, of course, at the end of the day, we would like to be able to store and manage all these easily within single storage, which give us a single view, which allowed us to query that very quickly and obtain all the necessary historical data or audit trails about the agreements. And having that in the storage, in the digital storage, will of course save us a lot of time as we go through and search for it. And because everything is now safe in a single storage, it also gives us an opportunity to run reports, to drive insights, and to analyze all the contracts, all the agreements that are already in place. And so what we saw earlier are really some of the top-line approaches, right, that are undertaken by some of the customers that I work with, and generally across the world, people are now starting to move in that direction. But I would like to kind of share with you, right, because when we have the aspiration to transform, sometimes it is also good to look into the what we call the framework. So I'd just like to kind of share with you a very simple framework over here, which is based on data design and technology. And let's say we want to set up an agreement, which I have shared with you. We have the single source of truth, right? We have the system of records. Why don't we just take the single source of truth and ingest those data into the system such that the contracts that are generated are all based on the data that we have, and they would also have already passed your eKYC process. And along the way, you may also want to use the insights and analytics to make informed decision about the kind of clauses to apply, whether it's a 30 days or 45 days payment term, and that will help you to also accelerate the pace of preparing the agreements. But at the end of the day, I think also when it comes to the journey, coming to designing the journey, if you have a contract that exceeds maybe a certain threshold, let's say more than 50K, you will want that piece of contract to be routed to maybe the tier 2 signers or tier 2 approval automatically within the workflow, within the system, such that you will never have a chance to say that, oh, I'm sorry, I've forgotten about it. But that is kind of situation, it's not going to happen. So if we bring this whole thing together, if we want to drive smarter agreement process, we can leverage on data design and technology to really improve on the overall productivity. How are we doing in terms of time, John? Okay, yeah, let me just very quickly wrap up. So, of course, we could also embark on, if you have the aspiration to make it easier for our customers to get the agreement process done. Again, we can apply data design and technology by building in pre-filled forms, right, for the customers to have the information already pre-filled, and all that they need to do is just to maybe fill out minimal information and get it signed, and then from there, using responsive design to kind of make it easier for them to sign anytime, anywhere. So at the end of the day, if our aspiration is to drive an easier agreement process by using data design and technology, we can absolutely accelerate the time to complete. The same principle applies if we want to make it more secure, more trusted. Again, we can have good data practice. We build into our workflow validation and integrity checks, as well as using technology to drive some of our authentication, authorizations capabilities. Now, in the interest of time, I will just very quickly jump onto the last slide. The reason why I kind of bring this framework out together is on the left, you see all the great aspirations. At the centerpiece, digital transformation sets in. We use a framework to help us modernize the system of agreement. And at the end of the day, remember, all these outcomes, they're all measurable. They're trackable, which then means that we can start to optimize, and then we can start to also make it into a phase-based approach. And so, coming to my last slide, all right, so if you're with me on this journey, all right, you're in tune to also thinking that the future of agreement, digital agreement, should be smarter, easier, and trusted. Today, what we have seen over the last 20 minutes or so is a very good framework for us to start thinking, and it could be used as a top-line thought starters or a strategy within the company to drive a process that is more agile, more adaptable in the long haul. And so with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. My name is Charlie Lu. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope the session has been informative for all of you.